Sounds good. I will go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. This is Exploring Careers in Immersive Technology, brought to you by the Job Forum. So we're going to start with a little description of what the Job Forum is and what we do, and then we will get right into the panel. So the Job Forum is a nonprofit volunteer organization dedicated to helping job hunters. And we coach, train, and provide networking opportunities to help job hunters looking for jobs in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have been around for 69 years, so a really long time, and help thousands of job hunters conduct a modern job search. And we have two primary programs. So the first is every Wednesday, we have free Wednesday job search meetings. And so those are meetings where you can bring your questions, bring your resumes, and we can chat about the individual questions that can help you find a job. And then on Thursdays, we have workshops around job search skills and industry-specific workshops. I'm going to do a quick introduction of some of us from the Job Forum who are helping facilitate tonight's event. So Michelle Excel is a creative and immersive technology strategist. She will be moderating the panel tonight and has put this entire event on and found all of the speakers. She has almost 20 years experience in digital marketing, product, and transformation, and has a hybrid consultancy and production company that helps brands and agencies with innovation strategy and production. And then we have Kathy here, who's helping manage the logistics of tonight's event. Kathy is an IT project director at the SFO airport, and she has 35 years of experience in IT. She has been working with the Job Forum for a long time and helps put on all of our workshops. So everyone say thank you to Kathy. And then we have myself. I'm just introducing the panel tonight, and I work in product marketing at Facebook. So for a little bit more information on the Job Forum, we now meet virtually every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And you can sign up for our events on Eventbrite. So we can send you Zoom details. And then we'll go into some of our workshops that we have on Thursdays. On Thursday, we have specific workshops for skills and industry-specific careers. So some of the workshops that we have coming up are about careers in nonprofit, creating video resumes, how to answer the tell me about yourself interview question that comes up in every interview, interview confidence, and practices for an effective job search. So again, if you're interested in signing up for any of these events, please find the Job Forum page on Eventbrite and you can sign up there. And in addition, the Job Forum is a nonprofit and it takes resources to help run and manage at a time when so many people are looking for work. We appreciate any donations that you're able to donate. So here's the link if you're able to donate. And we also have some additional benefits like a gift certificate that you can get for a job hunter who might need extra help. So if you enjoyed the event tonight, please consider donating to help support similar programs. So now I'm going to welcome and introduce our panel. We have a lineup of really great speakers for you tonight. So really excited for you all to hear from them. So I've already introduced Michelle, who will be moderating tonight. And then we have Krystal Cooper, who is a senior technical producer at Unity, working on the Spotlight team. We have Louisa Spring, who is the founder of SAM Immersive, specializing in strategy, business development, and partnerships and technology, including VR, AR, MR, 5G, XR, and so on. And then we have Robin, who's the CEO and producer for 3LB Games. They're founding the future of education through XR gaming with educational partners and developing Vault of Stars in partnership with Oculus. Tim Dillon is SVP of growth for real-time innovation at MediaMonks and was previously head of immersive at Moving Picture Company. Next, we have Tom, who is the VP of product at Eighth Wall, powering AR experiences with no app required. He's also an advisor and top thought leader in AR, VR, and wearables. And then we have Brian, who is a senior producer on Ingress, which is Niantic's first real-world game. Ingress players crowdsourced playable locations that enabled later Niantic games like Pokemon Go. So great panel ahead tonight. And now I'm going to hand off to Michelle, who will start moderating the panel and introduce immersive technology.
And is going to go off mute first. There you go. Thanks, Mary. That was a great intro. Again, check out Job Forum events. We meet every Wednesday, and yeah, it's been one of the more fulfilling volunteer opportunities that I have ever participated in. So great, and thank you for allowing them to me to do this event tonight. So why are we here today? We're exploring career growth in immersive technology. So we all, us panelists, all gravitated towards immersive tech, and we're very passionate about it. But that's not to say that 10 or even 5 years ago, we thought we would be in this field. And that's really the reason for the panel. So when I started to specialize in immersive tech about 5 years ago, I was really pleasantly surprised that I wasn't the only one. And it's quite a realization when you get into something like a brand new field to realize that a lot of other people were new to it too, and with really diverse backgrounds. So we've all had to navigate it in our own ways, from finding our way to it, into it, and then on to finding where our sweet spot is within it. So before we get into the first section, I am going to start with an icebreaker. So I'm just not monotonously talking, but we are today going to go through sort of topics. So we're going to start with what is immersive tech. We're going to try and explain it, and we're going to try and explain to you why we love it so much. We're going to try and help you figure out if it's for you. Spoiler, it is. And we're going to tell you from personal experience and lots of advice how you can break into it or make your start into it. So starting with an icebreaker, if I can change the screen. We're going to ask everybody, and I know I've still got the order, not every question is going to be like this with a roll call, but what was the last significant role you had before you started in immersive technology? And if you can remember roughly what time it was, what year it was, cool. But I want everybody to know that we all come from different backgrounds. So Krystal, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So for me, it wasn't that long ago. I was a data scientist and product manager at Caterpillar, which is construction and earth moving. Completely different from the immersive technology arena, but they do have computer vision and immersive technology teams at Caterpillar.
Cool. Louisa.
I was working for the Queen, actually, for her technology team. And I saw VR whilst I was doing one of the scouts, because they look at lots of things like facial recognition, etc. And I just fell in love.
That's okay. Try and top that, Robin. But
yeah, I was going to say I'm going to follow that story with director of engineering at a major consulting firm, which is actually really cool as well, because you get to work on lots of different projects.
It is. Tom.
Yeah, so I started in augmented reality in 2009, trying to usher augmented reality in as part of the publishing and media mix at a publishing company out of Canada. Prior to that time, I was working in what was the emerging technology of its time, mobile media, back in 2005. And so that's when we were just starting to understand that we could use our phones for more things, including, you know, SMS marketing and the emergence of the mobile web and mobile apps. And as well as a key focus on ringtones and wallpapers. So that was my life for 2005 to 2009. And I remember thinking that we were really on the cusp of a new wave of computing, which was mobile at that time, but I felt a little late to the party. And so I made a promise to myself that I would keep an eye out for what that next wave would be. And I wholly believed it was wearable technology, and that's what got me to where I am today.
And Brian?
On my side, I was the community manager on Google Photos, or Picasa was the thing that was a precursor to Google Photos. And I got into Immersive because I was hosting these photo walks, these real world events designed around, getting people together to go take photos together for Google Glass. So trying to figure out what should we be using these really cool wearable computers for. And yeah, that's what kind of drew me into Niantic and other things.
So cool. So I hope that gives everybody a little bit of a taste and sort of calms everybody down who's here looking for a new career, that no one obviously on this panel started their career day one in immersive tech. So we really do believe that immersive technology is a really accessible career, and we want you all who are attending to consider it. We also think that it needs all skills, all backgrounds, all voices, all perspectives. That's really important as we move forward. So I'm going to spend about 3 minutes, if I timed this correctly, giving those folks who maybe don't know a bit of an overview of what immersive tech is, and then the panel are going to jump in and tell me what I got wrong. So what is immersive tech? More often than not, when I try and explain it, I try and explain immersive as beyond interactive, probably because I come from a digital agency background and did lots of interactive for many, many years. So in a marketing sense, if you think about TV being passive, maybe online video or certainly a website being interactive, but immersive is really simulating reality in some way, or augmenting it or enhancing it. So VR is a really literal embodiment of this. But spatial audio, if you think about it, you're getting an oral experience that tricks your brain into imagining and feeling like you're in a particular setting, or a voice assistant or an AI, they're simulating a conversation. So whether that's a command and response, super simple, or contextual, dynamic, personalized, or playful. So these are the sorts of texts that we're talking about when we say immersive technology. But let's look at them in context, because they don't live in isolation. So this is one way of looking at it, of the scope of the industry. If you think about that, there's software development involved. Now that could be developing a film or entertainment title, a game, a learning curriculum, or any 100 other things, but it's also the operating systems. It's the creation tools, it's the pipelines, the game engines, the analytics. With hardware, of course, it's the core devices, but it's also the components for those devices and peripherals to those devices. And then everything else as well. So thinking about things like recording studios or physical experience locations if you don't have immersive tech, don't have a VR headset at home. So think about all the people creating, using, selling, distributing, and making all of this work. Another way to look at it could be looking at the industries that it broaches. So the VR Fund have been putting together these great maps since like 2015, 16, I believe. And I'm going to jump over to show you sort of the scale of this. Now, this is the last one I could find, but it's from 2019 and a huge amount has changed since then. But you can already see on here that some of the industries included are tourism, sports, journalism, education. And this is honestly tip of the iceberg stuff, even in 2019. There's a lot more than this. They were just trying to squish it onto a graph. Another way of looking, and I also want to note that this didn't include AEC, financial services, retail, CPG, automotive, any number of other industries that are also blossoming with immersive tech. Another way to look at it is this. I like this perspective. This is just looking at immersive tech and connected play and all of the other things that are involved. So connected play and IoT, ed tech, location-based entertainment, AR, or looking at LBE, location-based entertainment. So things like arcades, where you've got the actual arcades themselves, or cruise lines, places where immersive tech pops up for entertainment purposes. And even then, you've got the infrastructure that supports that. Even then, you've got the content and software that goes into it. The list goes on and on. And then our good friends over at Arcturus, who are building some phenomenal tools for volumetric, they've been putting together these maps for a while now, showing where volumetric capture stages are. I'm not even going to explain that. Some people will know what they are, but it's basically like a stage for capturing live 3D video of people, pets, objects, and you can just see the global scale of these. Now, you think about a TV or a film studio and how many people are involved in making that work. And this is a dedicated for immersive technology type of studio. So we're trying to give you an idea of just how far-reaching and integrated into existing businesses and across verticals and industries this really is. So we all do have different ways of comprehending immersive tech or explaining it to other people we work with and the wider industry. So we're going to hear from our panelists on what they think, so I can have a glass of water. I'm going to just pick somebody and start with them. Brian, you have very astutely observed that immersive tech is not a vertical in isolation, but rather goes across industries. Would you care to elaborate?
Yeah, I think when we were talking about it earlier, it's really this concept of if you're looking for a job in immersive tech, it's not like trying to find a job in banking or trying to find a job in like a specific sector, but immersive is really this horizontal layer across every industry. Like, I think when we were talking about it, we kind of gave the example of a Zillow or a Redfin, where those companies absolutely have immersive tech within them. I'm sure like they're working with Matterport to figure out, even better 3D tours of homes, things like that, which would be immersive tech. It's just, you may not consider Zillow or Redfin an immersive tech company, but they absolutely are doing things in that space. So when we're talking about how do I get a job in immersive, it really, to me, kind of means that, how do I just get a job, period? It's just so far reaching. And I think it's just going to continue to be even more pervasive, even more ubiquitous, as time continues.
Yeah, that's a good point. Tom, you've had a really big picture view on immersive tech and how significant it is, and sort of likened it to these, you've already mentioned it, likened it to some of these other revolutions as such. What do you think?
Yeah, I love what Brian had said. Just to add on that, I think with any new wave of computing, there's massive opportunities just across the board, in addition to trying to figure out how to leverage immersive technologies within your own organization as a differentiator for yourself, for your business, or even thinking about it as like a new tool that you may be asked to use within your organization. There are net new opportunities to join and or found startups that are building core technologies within the space, since the space is still new. As well, I fully believe that as these fundamental technologies and convergence occurs and the space matures a little bit, there will be opportunities for new solutions, new immersive first solutions to pop up as well. And so those are other opportunities, I think, to keep on your radar, depending on how where you want to go with your career trajectory.
Yeah. And Krystal, you've worked in a number of different, I guess, industry verticals. Where you are now is really special. Is there something you personally or within Unity that you use to describe like immersive tech as this big thing, or make it simpler to understand?
Well, I think being at Unity provides me a very unique perspective in that we are a software company that provides the platform that many of these experiences are built off of. And so that spans a lot of different verticals. I mentioned construction before, but there's also medical, fashion, industrial design. We have partnerships with other companies. And I think immersive, to Brian's point earlier, it's really basically what you do on an everyday basis. And the fact that inside of your mobile apps or inside the video games, inside of educational experiences, they're just an extension of an experience that you're already having.
Yeah, that's great. Louisa, with a lot of the business development that you do on behalf of immersive companies, I'm sure that there is a lot of education that needs to go on sometimes when you're talking to potential clients. Are there ways that you have time and time again fallen back on to describe maybe the value of immersive tech or any industries that it's more suited to?
FOMO is a great thing. Look at Walmart, look at what Verizon are doing, look at what, in every vertical, someone has touched on it and done a massive press release. So FOMO definitely works. And then I normally tell them that they need to go out and get a headset and try it. A lot of these companies haven't tried it before. So, you know, I mean, something as simple as that works really well. Then they get really into it, you know, after they've tried a few good experiences. You know, and then it's about solving the problems within that organization. And then on the, you know, smaller, on the other companies, which are startups that, you know, I've been advising for the past 5 years, you know, it's really kind of, you think that your product's going to fit somewhere, right? And that's why you made it. But it's not necessarily in that vertical or in that company that you think it's going to fit. So a lot of the time, you know, I have to have a come to Jesus moment with the developers about that it's not necessarily where they think it'll fit in this bucket over here, say with Nestle, but it might fit over here with Target.
That's really interesting and very indicative of how in flux, I guess, or how much opportunity there is at the moment. There are places for immersive tech everywhere. It's finding your niche. Robin, you come from you know, a development background. I'm sure that you've seen huge evolution in engineering, programming in general, even game development, as they've now adopted immersive tech. How do you see the big picture?
It was actually really great to follow that, because I was just thinking that entire time. I mean, my entire career has been all over the map, medical and engineering, and I've done weird building stuff with bill of materials and supply chain management and just inventory management systems, you name it, the crazy thing has gone on. And every single time I could think of something cool to do with AR or VR, or some way to train people, or some way to like leverage this technology to make that really boring domain a lot cooler. You know, why be so inefficient and like live in this past way? And there's the big opportunities. The more boring it is, the less people like us have gone after it. If we all go after it now, we can like leapfrog them years ahead. I mean, just imagine all the inventory management stuff with like training and, you know, barcodes. Like I could see the whole product right there in my thing. And like, that's what it actually looked like. I don't have to worry about pulling this big engine down on top of my head. I could spin it around. Why not? Immersive tech is everywhere. Just use your imagination.
I think that's going to be one of the quotes that we keep repeating, is use your imagination. I think it also makes sense to so many people where maybe some transformations in the past haven't made quite as much sense, or have been steeped in, you know, technical mysticism, things like that. Tim, how do you describe immersive tech? You've been in it for a fairly long time now. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working in what we're calling immersive here for 20 years. So starting in 2000 in Flash as a designer, you know, starting in Flash, building websites for brands like the Guinness experiential theme park warehouse in Dublin, or working with the Extreme Sports Channel or Tiger Beer, all these brands. But I think the kind of penny drop moment for me was when I started a company doing design for film for Universal and for other movies, and I worked on over a weekend. I worked on a series of designs myself in like a few different languages for War of the Worlds for Steven Spielberg, and actually in that kind of 3 or 4 day period managed to create something a little different, and it caught the attention and spun up into a whole company, which is now a whole industry that we know, which is programmatic advertising. But in that moment, to echo what the guys are saying, it's the newness of it that caught everyone's attention. Like, oh, what can we do with Flash? What can we do with animation? Where can we put this? Where does this distribute? And so for the last 20 years, I've just evolved every single year into a different format, into a different place, whether that's experiential with projection mapping, or whether that's in game engine. And there are so many different game engines, Unity and Unreal, but there's also the touch designers and the other kind of flat screen procedural engines that people were using on billboards and different spaces. So yeah, for me, it's been a 20-year evolution of the same immersive work. And if you say, what is immersive, to me, I think it's actually the feeling of it. It's like the design language of it and the way it is. Often I think of XR and interactive 3D and these other terms as also kind of broad terms for the industry. Now, more and more, I think people are thinking of immersive as kind of the art form too. But, the terminology is tricky, right? We could probably all talk for an hour about the way things are called different things. I like immersive as a term. I think it brings a lot of interesting people to the discipline,
Yeah. It took me about 3 hours to get that down to 3 minutes when I was trying to explain it. And then I just figured, I'll just do that and then get everyone else to fill in the gaps and say what they think.
Well, what's important is that people out there are calling it that, not just us, right? It's a recognized term that if you're typing into Google, can I work in immersive, you're going to get that list of distribution that you picked up before: VR, AR, mixed reality, a whole bunch of other stuff.
That's a really good point. We might loop back to that when we're getting into, how do you get into it? How do people get into it? That is a good point, because in the early days, I think we knew VR, and there were a lot of other terms coming out, MR, mixed reality, but it meant something different 5 years ago than it does today. I think a lot of the terminology has been solidifying, which is great. It's much more consistent across the board now as well. So now we're going to ask you, and some of you have already touched on this. I think, Tim, you gave us a bit of an aha moment. But I do want to ask when you fell in love with it. So was there an aha moment for you that when you realized just how special it was? Personally, I mean personally. So not, oh wow, it hit X amount of investment in the industry now, that says this is going somewhere. But more when you felt it. Tom, why don't you kick us off, because I saw you go off mute.
I think there was thank you, and there was many moments for me, but I think one of the things that stand out was more on the wearable technology side, where I spent a lot of my my beginnings and just taking a look at wearables at large. And I remember wearing a heart monitor for the very first time and being able to see my heart rate, and then freaking out because I actually did not know if that was actually a good thing or a bad thing, because I had no clue what a heart rate should be. And then that caused me to think about what this technology had done to me. It created like a data mirror, a biometric data mirror that I got to stare into and ask myself if I knew as much as I should about the most important machine in my life, which is myself. And the answer was I did not. And so I went on a journey to figure out, what a standard or average heart rate was, and also monitoring my own heart rate to understand what my average should be. And so that really caused me to believe that wearable technology and the shift towards augmented reality and virtual reality as part of that, where we are now starting to see the digital blend itself with the physical real world, which is really what I believe is at the root of immersive technology, is going to change humanity in so many ways. And I think Brian touched on this, and how this is an underlying technology that's going to disrupt everything as it continues to permeate. And I continue to believe that the fact that this technology becomes more a part of us, which is what I think this journey that we're on, will allow for us to have superpowers that will enable us to know ourselves better, that will enable us to be able to know other people better and be able to connect with other people. And so for me, that aha moment really was the resonation on the life-changing capabilities of the technology. And then I think the second part was, when I've been in technology for a while, and a lot of my friends who aren't in technology, saw technology as being at odds with humanity. Oh, you got to put your phone down, because you're not in the moment, is what we hear. And so, and I always believe that you never know what that person's doing with their phone. They may be in a moment with 100,000 people, so they may be overly connecting. But we've been seemingly at odds with technology as it's in its 2D form. And so I see this merging of the physical world and the digital world as creating a new moment of which we're fully present. It's not a real reality moment. It's not a a digital moment. It's a brand new moment. That's a hybrid of the two. And I think it will allow for us to really be able to live with technology in a much more harmonious fashion.
Yeah. And if that's not a good definition of why we love it, I mean, you could feel that. So thank you for being so honest about it. But I think it's how a lot of us feel. Krystal, when we first talked, you spoke about having this vision of where you wanted to get to. And so I'm guessing that the holodeck. So I'm guessing that there's something that set you off on that path. So yeah, what was that moment that happened that set you off?
For me, it started when I was a kid, going to theme parks. I remember going on Star Tours and feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm in outer space, and it's everything, right? You're fully immersed, audio, visual, your body, and growing up with, all the different sci-fi TV shows, Star Trek being the main one, that I wanted to see the holodeck become a real thing. And so now looking at all the different ways that, you can have immersive technology and share it with other people, regardless of what age they are. My mom put on her first VR headset and she saw some of the 360 footage that I had shot when I went to Africa, and I couldn't take her with me, but it was like she was there immersed in that experience without having traveled, 3,000 miles. So I just think about the potential for being able to bring experiences to people versus people having to go outside, or, whether it's accessibility issues or being able to travel, that you can bring those experiences into people's homes and they have the same type of joy and wonder, and it sparks their imagination. So that's why I love it. And that's what I hope to see, more creators doing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I think everybody has this time that they can think back to when they remember. Brian, you were so alongside it in working at Google, and the teams that you were collaborating with. I mean, they were really pushing the boundaries at that point. Was it at Google that you first had that aha moment about immersive technology and potential? Was it before that? When did it really hit home for you?
Yeah, I think it was probably that first, even like first week at Google. So I was at Google for about, I think, just a little over 12 years. But there's something about working in immersive tech specifically where it's the unbounded optimism of, what we can achieve. I think that's the reason that I love this. And it's not just this hopeful optimism, but it's also, you can find a lot of people that can report bugs or identify like, here's what I don't like, or here's what, could have been better. It's harder to find people that can actually identify, here's a solution, here's how we're going to actually implement and actually make steps towards making this a reality. So, this idea that like, this is not exactly immersive tech, but like putting a person on Mars or making a car that drives itself, this idea that like, anything is possible, like things that, would have been just science fiction, let's make it science fact. That's the stuff that I love. That's why I love this, that if you're working in this field, you are building the future. And, I think a lot back to like, when I first started using computers, like my first Mac, this would have been like in the 80s, had that same kind of, like I'm looking at my MacBook here and it's got like the red, yellow, and green dot in the corner to minimize the window. The early Macs had the same basic functionality. It was the same UX. The idea that like those decisions that got made 40, almost 50 years ago are still present today. You could be part of this group that's helping define UX patterns, UI patterns, how people are going to basically use this new computing platform, use new technologies, use, just everyday objects for decades to come. And that's obviously not an exaggeration, because that's what we're seeing right now. So that's why I love it. I want to build the future.
Yeah, you can find a lot of people to report bugs, but finding a whole group of people who are just seeing the positives resonated a lot with me. I think we've all had that experience where we've tried something and it may not have been perfect, but it gave us that feeling that, oh, this is going to be huge. You can do that now. Oh, it isn't quite working yet. That doesn't matter. I can see the potential. You have these experiences, you can see it. Yeah.
there's also just, there's enough garbage that's in the world right now. There's enough Black Mirror, and I want more Tomorrowland. I want more Star Trek. I want, to build the kind of future that like I want to actually see. And that's why I think it's so important for people to actually be a part of this, group, movement, career, whatever you want to call it, because somebody needs to make this happen, and we should make it happen in the way that we want to shape the world, not, this sort of crazy dystopian thing, but yeah, let's make it a good one.
I think we just need to record that and play that at the end of this panel as well. That was a very nice update to end on. Robin,
I didn't even work for the Queen.
Too many good questions.
And yet now I have to follow this.
And yeah, no pressure. When did it hit for you? When did you first come across it, experience it, and how did that feel?
I'm listening to everybody else, and I was like right there with you guys, and I was like, man, I should just plus one, especially Krystal. And the holodeck, that's what it's all about for me, right? Put the headset on, you're like, we're there. I know we're not there, but we're there. We're on the continuum to get there. So let's just work really hard. And if everybody goes in the same direction, we'll go faster. So, that's what I'm all about, is like, I don't know when immersive tech hit me, but I've kind of always been on this path of, we've got to do something to make things more interesting and make you feel like you're there. And I used to get really fascinated, if you go way, way back before even a lot of technology, like, what is it about a zoo? What is it about the aquarium? And you walk in and like the sound's different, it totally feels different. And like you're in this entirely different world, a different environment. Like that's the stuff. And if we can get there with the just better definition and, maybe a nice immersive suit would be cool, Pretty soon we will be on Mars, and we'll be doing stuff, and we could have robots and we can control everything, and it'll be super amazing. And how can you not love that? I'm just going to end on that.
That's great. I love the aquarium and zoo. Yeah, you're right. What was it about those places that makes it feel special? Louisa, it may or may not have been while you were working with the Queen, but can you remember back to when you first came across something you would classify as immersive that really stuck with you?
Oh, I remember it completely, because actually, so I was put into the Wilbur-Wright experience, which actually, was this amazing experience. I think it was on like a DK1, but they had a fan blowing in my hair. And anyway, it was so cool. But actually, I used to fly with my father an open air plane, and he died a month before. So, I still get choked up thinking about it, actually. So it was so powerful. And that was the moment I just went, okay, that's it. I'm doing it.
Yeah, that moment when it evokes that much emotion that it actually scares you. That was, my first was one of the early, probably the first as well, Oculus and at South by Southwest, which many of us will have experienced. And I thought I was having a flashback of sorts. It was that intense. It sort of took it off. No, I'm okay. All right, let's get into this. And it was that powerful. Tim, you've worked in and around immersive tech, as you mentioned, for so long with some of the cutting edge stuff. Was it something on the job that you first experienced that made you fall in love?
Yeah, it's a series of aha moments, as you said before, and listening to everyone talk about theirs, it's reminding me of all the different ones that came up. But I was working with Nexus Animation Studios in London, as Chris O'Reilly, the owner of Nexus, formed the idea of Nexus Interactive Arts, which was the first time there'd been this roster of directors who were just working on interactive art. And I would see all these great artists, coders, who had made a career for themselves or a job that didn't exist, to create visual art from code, have it commissioned for museums, do activations. And this is going back, 15 years, so it's early, and these artists are still working now. Hello, Karen Lewis, Marshmallow Laser Feast, Davide Crayola, and Marshmallow Laser Feaster is a good one actually. They've got a great name for one as a group of people. I'm sure everyone here has heard of those guys, but they're UK based and they've become well known globally, creating this type of code based art with particles, and they're experts in kind of looking at processes and organic processes. There's a bunch of people, Robin and Barney, and a whole bunch of guys there, and they're doing a show soon with the RSA with Shakespeare, bringing to life live mocap performance that's going to be ticketed and monetized. And so they've gone on this long journey. But I remember working with these guys back in these early days and just seeing what they were doing, and it hasn't, the fundamentals of it hasn't changed. It was as exciting then as it is now, and the tech's got better and it's supporting them better, and they were able to do more and get more people into it for sure. So that feels like a good reference. But yeah, just like everyone else as well, going to see early versions of the Void's work, you know, when this was just a warehouse with a DK1 and a fan and a torch that you picked up off the wall and heat and all of this sensory overload. It's pretty special getting that theme park, you know, experience. And I have a lot of hope for the LBE side of things, that as this continues, that we'll see the Void and Dreamscape and all these great companies have their moment where it goes really big, because it hasn't yet, let's be honest, and the pandemic hasn't helped, that's for sure. But the ideas and the people working in these spaces is just hyper creative. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that come to full fruition for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about I think a lot of the emotional experiences we have with immersive technology are more, say, entertainment based, but we really wanted to open this up by letting people know what effect it has. And you could imagine using this sort of technology or these experiences in social services, in training. There's so many different uses for it. But yeah, I think, thank you for everybody's very, very real, very impassioned, you know, responses to it. And if there's anyone on the event who hasn't tried it yet, get out there and try something. So we want to move now, if I've got this right, is it for me? So giving a bit of a landscape view and a passionate, you know, what's it like to experience it view, why we all love it. But if you're questioning whether there is a role for you in an immersive or an immersive adjacent field, the answer is yes, probably. Robin had a fantastic comment in one of our prep sessions, which was, we are building entire worlds, so whatever you do probably applies. So a new field can seem intimidating. I think that, you know, you have to, some people think that they have to have specific technical capabilities to qualify. You know, that we're talking about this in terms of the next, you know, mobile revolution, or, you know, harking back to, you know, when personal computers came on the scene. But it's not necessarily the case. Just like with any of those other industries, they need a lot of non-technical people too. So I'm going to ask you all, speaking from your own experience and experiences that you've observed in your time working in immersive tech, can you speak a bit more to the technical versus non-technical split? So are there roles in the field that might surprise us? And Tim, I'm going to start with you, because you had some really great comments in our prep sessions about this. Yeah.
I think I was talking a little bit with you guys about creative directors, yeah, and the role that they play. So creative directors being people coming up with ideas, of course, but, you know, funneling those, collaborating with and funneling those into pitch ideas, whether that be any kind of industry that we've talked about, you know, and prototyping and putting together demos. That creative piece of that team is really critical, but also then the visual arts, right? So concept artists, graphic designers, UI designers, UX designers, everyone who has that visual tendency, who would rather be moving things around on a screen than talking like we are right now. That's super valuable in this space for sure. But also not the hands-on designers. You know, I work with a lot of creatives at MediaMonks who are thinking and figuring out how to piece together these ideas. And that's something that is really critical to whether these ideas come together. And it's often, you know, a team of people of business, creative and technical that makes any idea come to life for sure. It's never just the creatives, but yeah, I think anyone who's already been creative, which is a lot of people in another industry, can definitely apply it here. Just coming up with ideas, whether that's theme park, like it's already been talked about, theme park type activation ideas, or just straight up, how do I get my content that I already make into a 3D object and into the world, which Tom knows a lot about.
Yeah, and actually I was going to call on Tom next, because Tom, Eighth Wall works with so many different industries, and I'm guessing that a lot of the people that you work with, a lot of the brands and agencies, they're not all just developers, and you're having to constantly prove the business case for why augmented reality for a lot of these. So maybe you could speak to that as well, just about the additional, that you could also talk about developer roles, but
Sure.
just the breadth of roles. Yeah.
Well, I think I will have to start with the developer role. Eighth Wall is a development platform. And so what I think is really amazing, learning from my time at Eighth Wall, is that if you are already a developer, whether that's you're developing applications or developing websites, you have the foundational expertise and skills to be able to enter this space, and really, going back to what immersive is, one of the fundamental aspects of immersive is really the shift from 2D to 3D. And so, anyone that has experience or the appetite to learn about space, and in particular, or 3D, and how to code or how to create in 3D, is really well suited to succeed within AR and VR and immersive technology. So this includes, web developers. This includes, app developers, developers that have game engine experience. This includes visual artists and designers, UX UI designers. Again, like as we're pointing out, really the roles that we're used to in creating digital experiences wholly apply to the immersive project team makeup. And on the flip side, of course, as Tim was pointing out, there are other folks that we need to collaborate in order to make something a success. That includes, project managers and product managers and marketers. And so, it is really the joining of these forces that allow for a project to get off the ground and to succeed. And so if you are already working in these spaces, you have the necessary, potential experience and skills, of which you just need to continue to explore what's happening on the 3D side, what's particularly happening on the AR or VR side, to level up and get yourself ready to really join in on all this fun.
Yeah, and I think, Robin, you've talked about that as well with the developers that you seek out. So even from a development point of view, that having some of those, having the baseline skills, you can bring people into this sort of work.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if you were just one of those people that sat around and played with Legos all the time and you would build stuff, like, come intern. I mean, it's the same thing. You can understand the concepts of 3D space and building something in an environment. That is all we're ever doing. And if that's not really your thing, but maybe you're the person who really is into music, there's just every layer of this is an opportunity for you to come into this space and do something. We need everything: writers, musicians, sound effects. It just goes on. Game designers, modelers. I mean, we could talk all night.
Yeah, and Louisa, you've talked about it as getting into research. Some of the folks that you've brought onto your team or onto your projects, you're able to onboard them relatively quickly. And could you maybe speak a little bit about that? Somebody who walks in day one, what do you do to get them up to speed with what's going on?
Well, it's baptism by fire with me, unfortunately, because I kind of operate a very small team. But I'm always looking for, interns, paid ones, by the way. I'm always looking for people that have skills, even such as PowerPoint. I mean, there's no point me sitting here kind of spinning out PowerPoints all day long. those kinds of skills actually, you know, important for someone like me. And, you know, I will say this, look, I was originally a lawyer and then became, you know, a manager in Hollywood. And, you know, my background is really not technical. So, you know, I would say that even if you're not technical, it's really important to, you know, still see an in here, because it's a great industry to be in. We're at the frontier. And don't be put off by the fact that people are talking in a language which at first you don't understand. Believe me, you get used to it.
Yeah, you do. And Krystal, you've had, you know, quite a dedicated, you know, career move and plan to break into this industry. Maybe you could tell people a little bit about that as well. You've gone through, you know, some training even.
Sure. So for me, because it's been like a lifelong dream for me, I knew that as undergrad and, you know, going on to graduate school, that I wanted to study anything that had to do with like spatial computing and computer science. But my real entry into immersive technology did not start with my computer science background. I was a researcher. And so researching, you're not writing code, you're just being, you know, you're just learning and, you know, like being a sponge and taking that all in. And so I feel like whatever way that you get into the industry, there's a lot of freedom and flexibility to move around, because you may start off like I did as a researcher, and then you teach yourself one of the game engines, you know, there's obviously Unity and Unreal as a developer, but then maybe you want to go into recruiting, and you, all of these different companies need someone to staff them up, someone to vet the candidates, to look at the portfolios. And so for me, my actual first hands-on experience was as a UX designer for a VR application that I helped to build. I was part of that team. And then I went on to found my own company. So my company is Reality Unbound. And so you share that space of being technical, but all of the business and entrepreneurial skills that are required to move that into an actual tangible product, that's a skill set that you don't necessarily learn as being coming from a technical background. You need to know how to budget, how to monetize your, you know, your service or your product. And I believe someone mentioned earlier that turns this into like a full-fledged, you know, revenue stream for you. So that is something that I think if someone had told me like I want to get in VR, that, oh, you just have to just know, you just have to go into gaming, like I think I would have maybe pursued other options. So I'm telling this to the audience, anything that you're doing now, you can do that in VR, as well as, you know, now I don't, in my current job, I don't do any coding. I'm a program manager and a technical producer at Unity. And so eventually over the course of your career, you will find out what fits at that time. And when I'm not at work, then I get to do a lot of the more technical hands-on things, but it's not something that I do in my day-to-day job. So I get the best of both worlds.
I guess, yeah, it is similar to, I think, when we were kids tooling around on our first, you know, computers at school or at home in the 80s. And a lot of software engineers back then taught themselves and got into it that way. And then it became something that you went and studied in this huge career path. And I guess what we're all saying is it's still relatively nascent, and this is a great time to be getting in and to be finding out what aspect of it you do like, and being able to try out different roles, because this always happens. You mentioned UX. Like I remember some of the UX friends of mine who are, you know, 15 years into their career, when we're talking to young people graduating as mentors, you have to admit, well, actually 15 years ago, UX wasn't really something you could study, or there weren't really these departments within the companies that we're working in now. So it's sort of almost like difficult to give advice on how to get into it, because we just made it work. We just sort of made up the role. And I like that it's still early enough that you can be creating your own path.
And I want to just add to that, you know, I think VR or immersive technology is one of the lower cost, low barrier to entry to shift in your career. So if you want to learn the software, it's free. If you want to do a tutorial, You can find videos on the web. There's no shortage of boot camps and workshops that are actively trying to recruit people into this industry. So it's, it's different than, like you said, a couple of years ago, where you would have thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose money, where this is more of a value add. You're going to potentially increase your salary just from taking a little bit of time, on the weekends or at night to just learn more about the field.
That's fantastic to know. That's so good. I am going to do a quick time check here because one of our panelists unfortunately needs to leave, but he did let us know ahead of time. So we're at 7 p.m. now, Tom. Thank you so much for joining. We have how to follow you. We have info on your newsletter later in the presentation, so people can find you.
Thanks, Michelle, and the panelists, and thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks, Tom. Have a good night.
Tom.
Cool. Okay, so let's get into how do I break in, and this is really where we want to spend a majority of our time, and we will be leaving time for questions. So anyone who is dropping things into the chat, we will loop back on these, don't worry. So as I mentioned in the upfront, we didn't all go to school for this. Some of us have done additional training and things, or we didn't even work in this field maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So I am really curious about how you made that first step into it. And Krystal, I actually had wanted to start with you, if you don't mind speaking again right now, back off mute. But, I know that you had this clear, vision in mind, but how did you actually get that first job? Where did it go from Caterpillar to now working at Unity? How did that happen?
A hackathon. So I saw that there was a hackathon and I registered. It just happened to be at MIT and it was open to anyone. You didn't have to be a college student. You could be a professional. And I was selected to participate and flew out to Boston. And over the weekend, taught myself Unity, certain features of Unity along with my team. And we built an app, and that's really how it started. It's just that simple. Not everyone on my team had a technical background. There was a photographer, a journalist, there was one graduate computer science student, and we did it over the weekend, and I've never looked back. So, from Caterpillar to now I'm at Unity, it just started with, honestly, me wanting to try it out and not being afraid to fail and being in a safe space where even if you do that, like, you're not breaking anything, it's just your own imagination.
And I guess once you've got that under your belt and you've gained that confidence, you're able to then talk about it with other people. You're able to then say, well, here's how we actually put that project together. I understand the roles. Right?
Yeah, and I think Brian had mentioned it earlier. It's not so much, people picking bugs and things like that. People want to know, like, what did you learn and how are you going to, change that going forward? Or maybe you found a different way to look at that. And I think hackathons are a great entry point for that, as well as just teaching yourself, and then you kind of can create your own lane. Because when I started in Immersive Tech, all of these different job titles that exist now, that was only 4 years ago. Those are not even a thing. I think I was looking for jobs like VR, XR, UX designer. They were not on all of the major, LinkedIn, that didn't exist. Now, those are the hot jobs to have. So, thinking about it that way, think about what you want to learn and what you want to do, as a prospective person that wants to come into the industry, and then create your own lane.
That's fantastic. So, a big part of what we talk about is having a point of view and immersing yourself in immersive technology. And I can't think of many better ways than hackathons. I've known a lot of people who've done that as well. A lot of my friends, women in VR, AR in LA or Microsoft runs a bunch as well, that, so many organizations run them, corporations.
Oh, it's like the gateway drug. I'm just telling you, I see now Evo, one of my other teammates from another hackathon, and it's a great way to network, right? And all of the a lot of the companies that you may want to work at typically sponsor the hackathons, and you get FaceTime with those people, you know, in a way that you don't have to wait on applying on a website, or, you know, oh, can you introduce me to someone? You just walk right up to the sponsor table, and, you know, usually the hiring manager or some of the recruiters are there on the spot. So,
and it's like a supercharged career day where you actually get to show off what you can do too, and learn about it in a real visceral way, rather than just read pamphlets and talk to people. That's awesome. Brian, you were exposed really early in your career. We've mentioned that before, working alongside these teams. When did you first know you were in immersive technology? Was there actually a delineation, or did it sort of from day one at Google always feel like it, or did you actually feel that shift and you gravitate more towards those truly immersive roles and teams?
I think so. Part of it was if we're talking specifically about immersive, meaning like AR and VR and that kind of thing, probably it was really helping out with the Google Glass team and trying to figure out, you know, once you have a computer sitting on your face, you kind of feel like you're already stuck in it. But one thing I did want to just touch on from Krystal, and I think something you had also said, was just this idea that you know, like my job that I have right now didn't exist 10 years ago. Like there wasn't a job description or like a job listing to apply to for my job. Even while I was at Google, a lot of that kind of stuff, you had to find your own way. You had to basically make the job that you wanted. And I think that's something, you know, if we're talking about maybe you're at a company that's not, you know, not a Niantic, that's not a Unity, but maybe there is a need to have, you know, spatial computing or immersive, or, you know, whatever that passion or that interest that you have might be. Sometimes it's just being kind of loud enough and noisy enough that like, hey, this is a real need. We need somebody working on this, and I can be that person. And here's kind of like what I was saying earlier, here's the plan of how I'll make this happen. So sometimes breaking into the industry can mean, you know, kind of creating your own opportunities. I mean, that there's some luck that's involved. There's, you know, needing to be in the right place, right time that's also involved. It's not, you know, it is tough to find jobs, but yeah, I think that's definitely at least part of it. Is sometimes you will have to kind of pioneer and make your own path because this is such a new field. But yeah, in terms of like,
I have to chime in, Michelle. It's such a good point. It really is. I remember, Brian, I was going to bring this up because I think you said it before, but the idea of being the person who starts to experiment with things in the job you're already in, or taking those, you know, small steps to make prototypes, even just on paper, show them to people. And then that's on the company you're either working in to either embrace that, see that, or then maybe it spins out into some other opportunity where you're talking to someone who does want to embrace it, because there's so many people looking for new tech approaches and immersive ways of doing things. And I just think it's obviously not everyone's in a job, so that doesn't apply. But I think, you know, instead of thinking about it as like this impossible startup with this magic unicorn idea that takes you from, you know, nothing to billions of dollars, I just think that idea that exists in the US and globally is kind of like this barrier for people, because they're just not going to start a company because they feel like the path is too hard, when actually the initial steps to get there are super open to everybody.
Yeah, you mean it could be career reinvention, career evolution from where you are right now. And a good way to start that as well, like Robin has mentioned it before, and I know Louisa goes to these because I met her at a conference, but is to go to lots of conferences as well, and hackathons. So if you're in real estate, Brian had mentioned before, you know, Zillow or Redfin, where did the idea come from for them to start doing 3D visualizations? Probably from somebody on one of their teams, seeing a trend in other industries. Where do you pick up those? Where do you get inspiration for what you could do to evolve your role? And Tim just mentioned, you know, not everyone can start a company, but Robin, you did start a company of your own. And let's talk, why don't you tell us how that came about? Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of that thing of being a little too far ahead of the curve, and being the tech evangelist and running around and being that person, and being 10 years too soon. Like, that was frustrating for me. So instead of kicking and screaming about it, I went off and formed my own company, and that way I could pick and choose whatever kind of cool technologies I wanted to be in. And here we are now with VR. So this, we joked about this at Oculus Connect when Oculus said the time is now. And us developers, we were all kind of like, oh yeah, because that's so cute. It's on the stairs and that sort of thing, and making fun of it. But something happened in the past 2 years, and it wasn't just coronavirus. That definitely helped. But suddenly I'm like, no, the time is actually now. This is it. We're here. Like, Immersive Tech is here. Everything you do is going to be surrounded by it. Every job's going to be affected by it. So you might as well be the one that jumps in and brings it into your company. And like everyone is saying, you can kind of write your own path. You can come up with your own job title. You can contact anyone in Immersive Tech and say, I've got these cool skills. I don't think they have anything to do with Immersive Tech, but I have these skills. Can you use them for something? Pretty good chance they're going to say yes. Accounting, writing, just you want to be an intern and just take notes. There's all kinds of jobs. Just jump in and make some offers to people, and try to help out and just do little bits, and go. As Krystal said, go to Unity and learn some stuff. Just check it out. Pop in here and there, and you'll break in. You'll find people. It'll happen.
And we're going to talk about share some of the groups and things and communities that we're in later, because that can be a really good way in to find projects that you could do even as extracurricular to your current job, or jump into if you are currently in between jobs. Louisa, you also started your own company. How did you make that happen for yourself? And how did you pick that it would be in the immersive technology field?
I've been basically helping companies for a long time in entertainment. And really when, I kind of fell in love with XR, I kind of thought about that, how, a lot of these companies, they're developers, they've got better things to do than think about kind of strategy, business development. It's very hard to be a salesperson when, you're a developer, and vice versa. And I take my hat off to those that can do it. But so, that's really where I looked at, who needed me at that point. And, believe me, it wasn't, easy at first because no one had any money. Thankfully, they've got a bit more money now. But also, I think the business at the very beginning was hard because it was so niche. But, now I see, a big breaking point where lots of companies are looking at this. They want to get into it. And there's a lot more opportunity for those small companies to start excelling.
And you're right. There's a lot of startups who need help, and a lot startups in the immersive tech space. Those companies still need normal business help. They still need positioning. They need business development. They need, their message and mission vision and things like that done. So if you're a person who knows how to do that, look to maybe shifting over and working with some of these companies who are working in new technologies. It's a really good point. It's a way in. How can I help them? And then start to build a business out of it. I love that. So I want to discuss training, and I'm going to put this out to everybody and just raise your hand if you want to talk on it. How important do you think it is? This is something that comes up in our job forum Wednesdays a lot. So people are looking at changing careers or breaking into it. And if it's not training, what else could it be? If you are going to break in and you don't necessarily feel confident, or you don't think your resume sort of reads, I'm qualified for this job, what are some tips that you would have for people looking to break into it? Through training or through something else? We've already talked a lot about hackathons and things like that. I am specifically interested in if there are courses. Do you look for courses when you hire? Tim?
I'll plug Krystal's nemesis here, Unreal, for a second. the other engine to the other side of Unity. I work with Unreal a bunch, and I see a lot of good work going on there around training. You know, they're in a great position with all of the revenue and success they've had with Fortnite. And I think they're on a mission to bring some of that back to the community, which I'm always really happy to see, because I think that's an important place for them for sure as a big growing company. So I worked with them recently, and we created a project called Unreal Futures, and it's a training course around advertising. And it's like I was saying earlier, it's kind of those early steps of jumping into tutorials, watching videos, downloading samples, being able to open things up, like Krystal said earlier, with no real problems to fail, everything's all good, you know. So, and then I think what Unreal does is, which I'm sure you guys do at Unity too, is then have a forum to be able to get Q&A going with people in the company and get answers and connect with people, you know, start to get that community going. This is huge. You know, I think for a lot of people, whether you're a producer or project manager, however you want to call that, at any level, junior, mid, high, you can be jumping into these engines and just learning. And I think there's also influencers and experts that are being brought to these online tutorials, online sessions, you know, similar to what we're doing today, where you're getting the best people in the industry talking about what they think about how these tools can be used. Someone in the chat window already mentioned all the virtual production events that are coming up. I mean, we haven't talked about virtual production today, but I think that's quickly, because of The Mandalorian and because of the popularity of what's going on out there, people in the world are thinking of virtual production as its own industry. Actually, it's immersive, it's XR, it's all the same tools that we're talking about today for filmmaking, for TV, for advertising, for film. So anyone who's working in film production, shooting, anyone who's working in that industry can apply all those same skills they were already had in production immediately over to virtual production. And that's a very easy sidestep into the industry.
And that's similar with virtual events as well. So a lot of people who worked in the event industry have been incredibly negatively impacted in the last year. But the upside to that is that there are now a whole bunch of new roles, and they need those event industry experts. So a lot of virtual event running, hybrid and virtual events, it will make sense to event experts. So things like, you know, run of show, making sure there's a green room, all of these things, like these are skills that people from the event production background have. The tools might be new, but they have the experience to be able to do this, and they are far more adapted to move into this. Sorry, Krystal, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I was going to follow up with what both of you were saying. You know, I think a great way with any job, whether it's immersive or any other industry, is to find a position that you like and find a job description and work backwards. So if you see that they need, you know, developers, see what other tools they're using. We dropped some of them into the chat. You know, obviously I work at Unity, but I think just being a part of the communities that use these different tools, so you can learn the language. You know, you can go to a meetup for free. You can join the user forums for free. Whether you go on Unity, whether you go on to any of the different coding communities, you'll learn what people are talking about. And you'll also see opportunities that may not get posted on different websites. You know, oh, I'm looking for people to join my team, or, oh, you know, can you make a referral? I get requests all the time for Unity developers. You know, I don't hire them specifically, but I do know that there's software engineers that they may not, you know where their next job is coming from. It's networking, right? And so I think the best thing about looking through a job description for the different companies, you can kind of compare, contrast, like what skills are in high demand at the moment.
That's brilliant. I love that, starting with a job description that you like and that you want, and then figuring out how to move towards that. I think that's really good advice. So you all hire. I am wondering if you have any advice for, well, not advice, speaking from a personal place, personal, not necessarily your corporation, but you can also speak about that. What do you look for when you are hiring? Brian, we had talked about this, and you had raised a really good point about you make a product that is essentially for everyone, and that does impact who you look to hire. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you hire and what you look for.
Yeah, I mean, especially at Niantic, but if we're trying to build a product for everyone, trying to make video games or a platform for everyone, then I feel pretty strongly that our teams should also represent everyone as well. If we were to, for example, only hire from Ivy League schools or only hire a specific type of person, I think my thought is just in general, nothing against people who go to Ivy League schools. It's just that there's probably, that's a very narrow representative sliver of everyone. So trying to make sure that, as we're trying to build for the most diverse audience possible, our team should also be that, most diverse possible. I think the other piece about how to break in, I looked at it slightly differently than trying to look necessarily for like the job that I wanted and more about the company that I wanted to work for. And I mean, I don't think there is like a single right or wrong way to do things. So just sharing my experience as an alternate path. But for me, I just really wanted to work for a company, and I didn't really care that deeply about what job I had, because I felt like if I could get my foot in the door and then show them, here's the value that I bring, then over time I could figure out either by working my way up that ladder, or kind of like I mentioned earlier, just, seeing there's a need and then trying to pitch my case for, this is a job that we do need to hire for, and hey, you should hire me to do that job. Things like that. That's what ended up working for me, is basically just trying to, do whatever I could to get in. Like, for example, at Google, I think I've held probably like at least 7 different types of jobs at Google, everything from advertising sales to user support to marketing to product management to the venture capital side, just because I'm insanely curious about how things work. A lot of the way that I learn is just hands-on, trying to figure out how to do things. And for me, that's what ended up working for me. But yeah, I think to each their own, and you need to find what works for you.
Yeah, that is I think it's a question that comes up in our job forum sessions a lot, our Wednesdays, which is, I want to break into this field, or I want to go work for this company, but I'm actually overqualified. So oftentimes people are so qualified in one direction or one industry that they feel it can be really difficult to make a switch, because they're not qualified for, say, a more experienced role in a new industry. But to break in, they take something lower and they find it hard to get traction. This is not a question that we prepped for ahead of time, but yes, Robin, do you want to take that? I'm wondering if anyone has any thoughts on that. Yeah. Robin.
Subject matter expert. Please just map your skills to the company that needs your subject matter expert skills, and now you have a high-paying job in the immersive industry.
I'd also add this.
Yeah.
That would be
Robin,
awesome. We're always looking for cool people that know like really deep tech, deep, interesting things in other domains. Like we all need that person. We need them on directors of our boards all over the place.
So it's like why you need me in your company.
Yeah.
I figured out what you do. I figured out the potential in this area. I want to get into it. Here's why you need me.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. There's so many people that would be interested in those emails.
I've worked with a lot of big companies, guys, as we talked about, small, medium, and large. The big ones all have quarterly targets, yearly targets, hiring grids, bottlenecks going on with what can get approved on any given hiring grid, on any given department. Generally, everyone in their P&Ls doesn't want to hire freelancers, but everybody loves consultants. Everybody loves short-term consultants on projects because the projects have budgets. Generally, it's easier to see it. So I've said to a few people, and I've seen this work, if you're a expert in your field and you are overqualified, you've been in the industry for a long time, you are an expert, to your point. You know, you're an expert. You can come in as a consultant, and before you know it, you are now running that department or whatever. You know, it's turned into a totally different gig. So I just think looking at it as a expert consultation works for bigger corporates. Not all of them, because, you know, some of them have these P&L, like don't want to hire outsiders. They want everyone to be staff. Sure. Yeah. But, you know, then that company is not going to get your expertise. The ones that are more entrepreneurially minded are going to hire consultants on projects and on 6-month contracts.
I like that, especially with some of the smaller startup companies, or not smaller, just startup companies. Startup companies, once you start to scratch the surface, use so many consultants. It's insane. I'm working on with a company right now and finding out how many other consultants there are working for them. And I think that's a really good idea. It's also a really good way to get your toes wet, if that's the expression. Feet wet, toes wet. It's a really good way to start getting into it. Robin, I do want to get back to you though, because that was fantastic advice, but you said something as well when we prepped that was one of the questions you ask people when you're interviewing, if you can recall what that was. And if you can't, I have notes somewhere, so I could probably jog your memory.
What could I possibly have said?
I think it was about, do you know how we make money?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, I find that a lot of people end up very unprepared and they're just looking for the job. Whereas I don't want you to come looking for a job for me. I want you to join my mission, which is a totally different thing. So if you don't know how we make money, how can you help us? How can you figure out what your skill set is and how can you apply it to what would best help us if you haven't even figured that part out? So that to me is like the biggest piece of advice ever is go look at the website, really understand what's going on. And if you can't turn around and describe that business model back to the person you're interviewing, you're wasting your time because you didn't care enough either. So, you know, it's that, you know, I'm trying, you know, that's what's going to find you to a really good match is what you're looking for. Like this is a serious commitment when you join a company. And I think, you know, you'll end up better in the end because of it.
That's also a really good tip for the people wanting to transition into immersive tech, because you really are saying that you understand what your skill set is bringing to them, how you are providing value, I think, which is really interesting.
And to circle back actually on another thing you were talking about earlier that I thought was really important is that little nugget. If you're coming in and saying, well, I have this little skill and I think I could help you, and here's how. Maybe you're working 5 hours a week in Immersive Tech while you're then training up on what you really wanted to do, and you could ramp your way up from your current skill set up to where you want to go. You don't even need to know where you want to go because you could sample around in the early parts. It's really easy to go jump around to different jobs in Immersive Tech, not so much even jobs, but you could work and do 6 different things for me in a course of 2 months. And you'd now know more information about what you want to do later.
Right. I'm sorry, I was listening, but Tim, Dillon, I just realized that I did miss your icebreaker. Sorry. Just going back through the chat because we're going to get into questions in a minute.
An hour ago.
Yeah, it was an hour ago. I haven't been looking at the chat. I've been engaged. Before we move on from this topic, though, Louisa, anything to add? I know that you do hire interns, and then Krystal, I want to ask you some specific stuff about Unity after that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, from my point of view, they've just got to have an interest. And, you know, I read all the blogs, you know, I follow people on LinkedIn. And, you know, LinkedIn is a funny thing. Some people will respond to you, some people won't. But a majority of them actually do if it's to topic and if it's something, you know, they're going to be interested in. So you know, getting any job is hard. And I would say, you know, I mean, to be honest, Brian, can you see me at Google? No, right? So what I'm trying to say is there are different places for different people. So not to get discouraged if the big ones don't work out, you can start at some of the small ones that are doing some really cool stuff too.
Yeah. Krystal, I am curious about what it is like getting a job at Unity. You know, are there any tips? Do you have, are there any, is it straight through recruiters? Do you show up at campuses? Do you, you know, run hackathons yourself? Are there any things that you're doing as a company that people might be able to check out?
There's quite a few things, right? Right now everything's virtual, but they are, you know, depending on what campus, I'm sure they have different recruiting events. We have a couple of developer days that are coming up. One in media and entertainment, and the other one in mobile gaming. And I can drop the links in the chat as well. I'm going to
share this at the end, and it's got a lot of links in the back of it too. So watch out for that, every attendee. Yeah.
You know, I think networking is a great way to start. My entryway into Unity, I followed a couple of the developers on Twitter. I'm also a member of Black in Gaming and Women in AR, VR, a couple of different online groups. And so I just kind of poked around and said, hey, would anybody at Unity be willing to talk to me about your experience? Found people on LinkedIn until I got enough traction to where I've talked to enough people where I felt like, okay, this is someplace that I'd really like to work. And I applied, got a referral, and here I am. So proof is in the pudding, and my 1-year anniversary is coming up. But I wanted to go back to something that Raman said earlier. And I think really the message that I took from that is take a chance on yourself. You know, nobody can tell your story better than you when you're looking for a job. So maybe you have 20 years of experience in banking, but if you can translate how that's important to the role that you want, that skill in and of itself is more important than actual title that you end up getting, because you just can't teach hustle to people. They either know it or they don't. And I think people are looking for that type of energy and spirit about the people that they hire, you know, whether it's, you know, Unity, Google, Niantic, like how bad do you want it, and how can you showcase your, you know, yourself when you're looking for these jobs. So yeah. And another way to do that is going to events, introducing yourself to people, letting them know your story, the projects that you worked on, the, you know, anything that kind of sets you apart from, you know, obviously you can just apply online for any job and, you know, just sit in an applicant tracking system and wonder like, oh, no one ever got back to me. Well, they need to be able to put a story or a face to a resume or a name, and you have to brand yourself to do that.
You just described basically the summation of our job forum advice most weeks, most Wednesdays, to a T. You are the model of that, which is, yeah, start tracking people in the company, start finding out what they're about, asking for informational interviews, going to events, getting a referral. So these are all really vital things. And people say, well, how can I get a referral? I don't know anyone there. Start figuring that out, you know. So and if it's not somebody at the company, it could be somebody connected to somebody at the company, but you do have to show that you have a dedication and a desire to work for that company. And I know it's not for everybody. A lot of these skills are really difficult. It's you know, it's different than the days where you could send in a resume and somebody would read every single one. You know, we do have these automated vetting systems and things. And so the actual, ironically, the personal touch ends up being the most effective because the systems are not the most effective, which is something we talk about often in our job forum sessions. So I am going to flick through a couple of slides here because we are creeping up to the end of our time here. And I just want to, I'm going to go through this stuff so quickly. I just want to let people know that we have put together some slides with some of the links and references, some inspiration here as well from some of the panel. A lot of it got talked about tonight. I'm going to switch to questions first, and then maybe if we have time or nobody puts their hand up, then we can come back and talk about some of these. But we're going to be sharing this on Job Forum's channel. So we're going to tidy it up a bit, take all of my ridiculous notes out of the notes column, and then we're going to share this. And so look out for it on the channels of any of us who are here today, but also the job forum. So job forum, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on LinkedIn, and we will post this. This also has who is hiring and links to the careers pages for our panelists tonight. So you can check these out. A lot of folks are actively hiring right now. Louisa is constantly on the lookout for project-based collaborators and interns. MediaMonks will be hiring in the immersive area, or in Tim's area soon, which is real time. And so keep that bookmarked if you want to get into real time and work with Tim. And then we also have how to contact us on here. Some people prefer different platforms. You can also follow somebody on LinkedIn. If you reach out and somebody doesn't accept your friend request, one of us doesn't accept your friend request straight away, you can still follow somebody, so you can be following along what they're posting and things like that. That's just a pro tip. Kathy.
I just have a quick question. I appreciate you posting, but as well as an attendee, will they receive the email from the job forum of your PowerPoint slides?
Oh, we can certainly send that. If we can send an email out to everybody as a thank you, I can certainly include the link. Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure if we even did that. This is the first event I've done, a special event for Job Forum. Yeah.
If you send the final one, PowerPoint to Jess will send it via email to all the registered attendees.
Amazing. So you are all going to get it, everybody. That is brilliant. We also tonight live streamed this on YouTube. It's actually on my channel, which has nothing else on it apart from a weird AR scan of a backpack that I did about 3 months ago. But again, we'll include the link so that you basically have like a VOD version of this, so that you can watch it again later if you want to, or go back to anything. So different folks on the panel I know have been watching the comments. So I am wondering if there are any questions that popped out. I saw one or two that were quite specific. A lot of it's everybody talking to each other, so awesome. I have to shout out to Evo, who's been sharing tons of advice and things in the chat as well. Hello, Evo. Evo is how I know Krystal and came on the panel. Evo will probably be joining the next event that we're going to do for this. I want to do another one in summer. We have folks from Nestle and Microsoft all wanting to join us, so that's great. So you can get some perspectives from different industries as well. But has any of the panelists or Kathy seen a question?
I just want to say, Michelle, thank you to you for putting this together. Honestly, you're a fantastic host, and it was, informative for me too, listening to everyone. So thank you.
Cool, thanks guys. I just went really red. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Attendees don't even know the half of it. I made these folks jump through quite a lot of hoops. I had one-on-ones with everybody, and I have learned so much. Your career experience is invaluable. I know it's going to help me be a better job forum panelist in future for our job seekers, which is amazing. And I really hope maybe we could even do some follow-ups and post some additional things, because I think this is a really important topic. We talk a lot about where the industry is going, how much investment it's getting, who's doing cool stuff, but we don't often just get to talk about our experience and how to get into it. And I really do believe we need more people from different backgrounds getting into it, and now is the time for sure. This is an interesting one. Somebody asked, and I can't see the full name, are there too many immersive technology startups these days? Who wants to take that one?
Louisa.
Yeah, I get hit up a lot by a lot of immersive technology startups that want me to work for free. So no. I don't think there are too many. Everyone should be trying and seeing if it works. I'm a big believer in until it doesn't work, give it a go. So I don't think there are too many out there doing all the same things. I've been looking at verticals recently, and there's, a lot of companies within some verticals more than others. So, anyway, I'm not against more companies percolating up.
Okay, good answer. Nice and diplomatic as well. Suggestions for those of us who would make great board members for companies. What if you see a company that you love and you want to offer your time in a board member capacity? Has anyone got any experience with that? Robin's nodding.
I have. I was on a board of directors for a company that did this crazy technology. They mapped cities. This is like 1999, which is unheard of at that time. And obviously it failed miserably because, it was too soon. But yeah, that was a great experience because you get lots of shares of stock and you get to impart all your awesome wisdom and advice, and you get to be collaborative, but it doesn't take up your whole day. So if you have subject matter expertise and you think you could be that person, you should definitely do that because it's helpful for the company. I only need sometimes to talk to somebody for like an hour, get the gist of something, kind of get the lowdown, and then I can go off and do the meeting or whatever. But it's just really nice to have a support network of different types of people in your group.
It's a really good question as well. It was Eva who asked that question, because I think for people who are maybe looking for a career transition quite deep into their career, it's a really great way to start moving across, to offer yourself as an advisor or a board member. And as well, you can stay. So I work mostly in, marketing and advertising and XR for, consumer campaigns and things like that. But I'm also a board member on a VR startup for PTSD therapy. So, you can do different things and sort of satisfy your curiosity and your passion areas as well. I think it's a really great thought and a really great idea. This is a good one here. We've got somebody, and again, I'm so sorry, I can't see the full names of people on here. I could see Evo because it's 3 letters long, but I can't see the full name of this person, but I'm going to read it out. I'm interested in immersive technology for mental health, relaxation, disabilities, and unconscious biases. I'm also looking into immersive technology for forest bathing and similar nature relaxation related stuff. Where do I get started? There are a lot of great startups in this space. Anyone got any favorites that they would like to talk about? A lot of people nodding there.
Startups and research groups, right? Because this is where our area crosses over directly with research groups at Stanford and other great places that are doing NYU. And there's all kinds of great places that will be happy to have help and collaboration, I'm sure. There's different size studies, I'm sure, but yeah, wellness itself is such a booming area that we're all working in different ways, I'm sure, because it's huge. So that's an wellness industry is something that Immersive works for, but COVID pandemic aside, some of that's stalled a little bit, but I think we'll see that come back in a big way. But yeah, those accessibility and research projects are really strong in this space.
It's a really good idea, because you could see somebody doing something in a lab for a project, an R&D project, and say, I'd like to trial what you're doing with my group of people. Would you be willing to use me and my group of people as a case study, as a guinea pig trial for what you're building? That might be a way to do it. Don't discount the fact that there are people who also want to just pitch in on projects because it is a passion area of theirs. Like we were just talking about with the advising, or, with the board member. It doesn't have to be as far as board member, but with advising. So you might be able to post on some of the communities and groups, which we put some of them into these slides here earlier about who to follow. The Women in VR AR group is how a lot of us know each other. A lot of the women, it's how I met Robin. It's not how I met Louisa, but we're connected there. Evo recommended Krystal through there. It's a really great group to be part of. There's constantly people saying, hey, I need some support. Does anyone know Unity and need help? Because there's also people in there who are learning. And so they want to pitch in on projects. So you might be the subject matter expert in meditation. You've got a cool new tech to work with from a research group, Tim, and then you've got a young person, or any person of any age, learning Unity and wanting to try their skills out. So yeah, I think you can pull things together.
I'm part of the Women in VR group as well, just by the way. Men can join these groups and be supporters and help get jobs and other things posted. So I've got a lot of friends in that group, and I think it's one of the really good ones.
Yeah, it really is. It's very strong. A lot of people stay in it. It's very active. And then try as much as you possibly can. So, you know, look on Oculus, actually try the experiences, figure out what you like about what other people are doing, and try and figure out where maybe your point of difference could be. You know, take an Oculus Quest and go out into the, you know, natural world, try Trip, you know, one of the Trip meditations or something like that, and then think about, hang on, if I was here with a group, how could we use this to augment our experience? You know, get weird with it. Actually, you have to use these. You have to use these tools.
And
you
then
really
come
do.
online on Women in XR and post about your experience with your lens on it.
Great idea. That's going to attract people to what you're doing. 100%.
Now you're a thought leader.
Such great advice. Yeah, really good advice. All right, we're a minute from ending time. Is there anything that anyone wants to say? Because I have horribly missed something. Because, you know, we're happy to answer questions after the fact too. You know, the email is going to go out, but, you know, find us. You can maybe comment on the YouTube live stream as well. I haven't been paying it any attention because we've been focused on the Zoom today, but we did post it there. So if there are questions, I'd be happy to jump on and answer those after the fact. Don't forget to follow the job forum on Eventbrite, because we do more of these events. Here are just some of the ones that are upcoming. We had Greg Catano join today as well, who is a wonderful connector and leader in the XR industry out of LA. And Greg, thank you so much for the donation. He signed up tonight through the Eventbrite and made a donation. We are a fully volunteer-run organization, so anything helps. I know if you're searching for a job, seems counterintuitive, but we do give really good advice. And if you're a company, get involved. You could run one of these events, send one of your executives to become a panelist and start volunteering for the job forum. It's a wonderful organization. And it is San Francisco based off. Thanks, Greg. Yeah. Evo has also posted a ton of stuff in this thread. So, you know, we'll leave it on for a couple of minutes while we wrap up, go back through and click on all of those links. Maybe we can grab the transcript and add some of the links to our follow-up. Yeah, Kathy.
Michelle, everybody on here can save the chat.
Oh, they can. Oh, do you want to walk people through how to do that?
So if they go to the chat in the lower right corner, there's a ... They can save the chat, and whether they have a Mac or a PC, it'll be saved to their you know, their download file, their drive, and it translates in Notepad, so it's all there.
Great. Oh yeah, where you go to type a chat message, the ...
Right,
over there.
right. You just go more and you can
Great.
save your chat, you just save it. And Michelle, I just want to say, I know Janet's still on, phenomenal job with all the panelists. You were so insightful. So much of this is like you say, the advice that we give, but this has been passionately delivered, so exciting, and just a plethora of information. And that I've learned so much tonight, and I speak on behalf of all the attendees, that you nailed it in terms of preparation and research and referrals and networking and being yourself and standing above the others and just being proactive, taking risks. So you well done to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, panelists. This has been quite a journey. I cannot wait to do more of these. I'm so glad that I met all of you. Thank you, Kathy, for teaching me more about how to use Zoom than I ever knew I needed to know, and running that. Any shout outs? Anyone want to leave anything? You do not have to, and now I've just put you all on the spot, but thank you all for joining.
Just to say thanks. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Good to hang out with you all.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Krystal. Bye, Louisa. Thanks, Robin. All right. I'm going to stop sharing.